All right, we're going to go on a bit of a journey today. It kicks off with a problem you've definitely seen before, but it ends with a totally new way of looking at our place in the universe. And then you know what? It all starts with something really, really small.
Just think about it for a second. A plastic bottle, maybe a candy wrapper, a disposable coffee cup. It's something you can touch, it's familiar, and it's waste. For most of us, that's kind of where the story ends, but not for everyone.
See, for this one group of high school students, that little piece of trash wasn't just litter on the ground. Nope, it was the spark. It was the beginning of a question that made them look way, way deeper, not just at the environment, but at the whole structure of nature and where we fit into it all.
So this is where their story and our story for today really begins. It starts with a crisis that, let's be honest, you don't need to look very hard to see. It's washing up on beaches and piling up in our neighborhoods.
So, let's meet the crew. First, you've got Sarah, the super passionate conservationist. Then there's Dheeraj, he's the environmental scientist, the brains of the operation. You got Anna, the artistic activist, bringing that creative spark. And finally, Michael, the persuasive communicator, the one who can really get the message out there. Together, you've got this amazing mix of heart, science, art, and action.
And for them, this wasn't just some abstract idea from a textbook. They were seeing it with their own eyes, the impact on local wildlife, how it was just degrading the places they called home. They knew they couldn't just sit back and watch. But to really fix it, they had to understand the problem on a much, much deeper level.
Okay, and this is where things get really interesting. To truly understand a single piece of plastic, they realized they had to zoom way out and look at the entire system. And that led them to this incredibly powerful idea, the 4 orders of nature.
So this concept basically breaks down all of nature into 4 big categories. You've got the physical order, that's your soil, water, air, all the non-living stuff. Then comes the bio-order. We're talking plants, trees, all of that. Next up is the animal order, so birds, mammals, insects. And finally, there's the human order. Each one is a critical piece of the whole puzzle.
And the ideal state, the goal for how these 4 orders should interact, is this concept called mutual fulfillment. And it's a really beautiful idea when you think about it. It means that each part of nature doesn't just put up with the others. It actually helps them thrive. It's this perfect self-powering loop of support and enrichment.
Now here's the key thing. The first 3 orders are already nailing this. They're doing it perfectly, right now. Think about a forest, right? The soil nourishes the trees feed the animals, and the animals, well, they spread seeds and eventually enrich the soil. It's a completely self-regulated, harmonious system that just works.
So if those first 3 orders are in perfect harmony, what's the problem? What's the hiccup? Well, that brings us to that 4th order, the one that, well, seems to be breaking the cycle. That brings us to us.
Take a closer look at this diagram again. You can see all the arrows showing how the physical, bio, and animal orders all enrich each other, and they enrich us too. But then, look at the arrows pointing away from the human order. They're question marks, and that forces us to ask a really tough question. What are we actually giving back to the system?
Wow, this quote from the source material is powerful. It suggests that without the right kind of understanding, we don't just fail to contribute. We actively mess up the balance. We take, we dominate, and we exploit. And that single piece of plastic waste, it's the perfect symptom of this huge disconnect.
I mean, this slide just lays it out so clearly. You have nature on one side, self-regulated, interconnected, mutually fulfilling. And then you have humanity without the right understanding on the other, disruptive, exploitative, and dominating. The challenge then is pretty obvious, isn't it? How do we flip the script? How do we turn those question marks into arrows of fulfillment? And this brings us right back to our 4 students, because what they were doing, their campaign, it wasn't just about cleaning up trash. It was a real practical attempt to bridge this very gap, to turn their understanding into action that actually makes a difference. And their approach wasn't just random. They had a clear plan. First, they built up their own understanding by doing the research. Then, they worked to share that understanding with everyone else through education, with art and presentations. And finally, they used that shared awareness to push for real systemic change. This is literally a blueprint for how to restore our link in the chain. And you know what? It worked. They got real, tangible victories. Plastic bag bans in local shops, new refill stations around town, companies adopting better packaging. These aren't just small wins. These are real-world examples of the human order starting to act in a fulfilling way, creating systems that support the natural balance instead of disrupting it.
So what does this all boil down to?
What's the ultimate takeaway here? This is so much bigger than just one campaign or one kind of pollution. This is about completely rethinking our entire relationship with the world around us.
Now, I know this diagram looks a little complex, but its message is actually incredibly simple. Existence is coexistence. Nature, for the most part, is already humming along in perfect harmony. The final piece of the puzzle, the one part that needs to finally click into place, is us, the human order, finally getting what the text calls right understanding and right feeling.
So while new laws and cool new technologies are definitely important tools, the real solution being proposed here is a change in our perspective. It's about getting deep down that we aren't separate from nature. We are a part of it, and we have a very specific role to play in keeping it all in harmony.
So let's end on this thought, which comes straight from the source material. If our main job here, our participation in existence, is to realize this coexistence, what does that actually look like in our day-to-day lives? Forget the plastic bottle for a second. What does that mean for how you work, how you live, how you see your own spot in this massive, interconnected world? That is the real question.